Somewhere around 10,000 years ago, someone ate something they should not have eaten. It was fruit, rotting fruit that had been sitting in the sun too long, that had started to bubble and smell strange, that every logical instinct said to leave alone. But they ate it anyway. And a few minutes later, something happened to their body that had never happened to any human being before. The world tilted. Their limbs felt heavy, their face went warm, and somewhere deep inside the oldest part of their brain, something said, "Find more of this." That moment changed everything, not just what humans drank, not just what humans farmed. It changed why humans built cities, why humans formed religions, why humans created art. The story of alcohol is not the story of a bad habit, it is the story of civilization itself, and it starts much earlier than you think. Before you can understand what alcohol did to human history, you need to understand what alcohol actually is. When sugar meets yeast in warmth, it ferments. The yeast eats the sugar and produces ethanol as a byproduct. Ethanol is a toxin. Every animal on the planet evolved to detect it and avoid it. The smell triggers a warning system deep in the brain that says, "This is rotting, this will harm you, do not eat this." Every animal listened to that warning, every animal except one. Biologist Robert Dudley at the University of California, Berkeley, has spent years studying what he calls the drunken monkey hypothesis. His research suggests that your relationship with alcohol is not a modern weakness or a cultural invention. It goes back at least 10 million years to your primate ancestors living in the forest canopy. Ripe fruit, the kind most nutritious and calorie-dense, naturally contains small amounts of ethanol as it ferments on the vine. The primates that could detect that faint smell and follow it, that could tolerate the ethanol without being incapacitated, found more food, ate more calories, survived more winters. The attraction to fermented fruit was not an accident of culture. It was baked into your biology by millions of years of evolution. You were always going to find alcohol, the question was only when. The answer, according to the best archaeological evidence, is around 10,000 years ago. But here is the part that rewrites everything you thought you knew. Humans did not discover agriculture and then accidentally make alcohol. The evidence now suggests it happened the other way around. Humans may have started farming specifically to make more alcohol. Archaeologist Patrick McGovern at the University of Pennsylvania has spent decades analyzing the chemical residue inside ancient pottery shards. What he found in sites across the Middle East, China, and Central America tells the same story everywhere. The earliest ceramic vessels humans ever made were not for storing grain or water. They were fermentation vessels. They were built to make alcohol. McGovern calls it the beer stone, a pale yellow residue left behind by ancient barley beer found in pottery in the Zagros Mountains of Iran, dating back nearly 7,000 years. But even that, he argues, is not the beginning. Go further back, go to Göbekli Tepe, a site in modern Turkey that appended everything archaeologists thought they knew about early civilization. Göbekli Tepe was built around 11,000 years ago, roughly 2,000 years before the invention of writing, before the first Egyptian pyramid, before any city humans had ever built. It is the oldest monumental structure ever discovered. Massive carved stone pillars arranged in circles, covered in detailed animal reliefs, built by people who had no metal tools, no wheels, no agriculture. At least that is what everyone assumed. Then archaeologists found the vats. Massive stone containers carved directly into the floor of the structure with a combined capacity of over 160 liters. And inside them the chemical signature of fermented grain, wheat beer, 11,000 years old, at the oldest ritual site ever discovered. Think about what that means. Humans organized, they traveled, they hauled enormous stones across vast distances, they built the most ambitious structure their species had ever attempted, and at the center of all of it they made beer, not bread, not stewed beer. The site was not a settlement. There were no homes at Göbekli Tepe, no signs of permanent habitation. People came from far away, gathered, built something magnificent, and drank together. Archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who excavated Göbekli Tepe for decades before his death, believed the site was a temple, a place of ritual, a place where the community became something larger than its individual members, and alcohol was the sacrament. This is the counterintuitive truth hiding inside every drink ever poured. Alcohol was never just about intoxication, it was about connection. It was a technology for turning strangers into allies, for dissolving the social barriers that kept groups of humans suspicious of each other. When you drink with someone, your brain releases oxytocin, the same bonding chemical released between a mother and a newborn child, between close friends, between lovers. Your threat detection system quiets. Your willingness to trust rises. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar at the University of Oxford has studied the social function of alcohol across dozens of cultures and thousands of years of history. His conclusion is stark. Alcohol may be the primary reason why human social groups were able to scale beyond the natural limit of roughly 150 people that biology imposes on primate communities. To trust a stranger is not natural. To drink with a stranger makes it possible. So early humans did not stumble into alcohol and lose control of it. They used it deliberately, carefully, ritually. They understood something about its power long before they had words for chemistry or neuroscience. They understood that it changed the way people related to each other, and they built their most sacred spaces around it. After Göbekli Tepe, the story of alcohol and civilization becomes inseparable. Every major ancient culture independently discovered fermentation and made it central to their society. The Sumerians, the world's first known civilization, had a goddess of beer named Ninkasi. They paid their workers in beer rations, a daily allocation of fermented grain distributed by the state as wages. The ancient Egyptians buried their pharaohs with jars of wine because they believed the dead would need it in the afterlife. The Greeks built their entire philosophy of social life around the symposium, literally a gathering for drinking together where ideas were exchanged, alliances were formed, and the foundations of Western intellectual tradition were laid. All of it lubricated by wine. And here is what makes this even stranger. For most of human history, alcohol was not a luxury or an indulgence. It was a survival tool. Water in ancient cities was dangerous. Rivers and wells were contaminated with bacteria that killed. Fermented beverages, because the alcohol killed most pathogens, were often safer to drink than the water supply. For thousands of years, across dozens of civilizations, children drank diluted wine or weak beer instead of water, not because they were reckless, but because the alcohol kept them alive. The societies that figured out fermentation first did not just bond better, they survived longer. Now think about what that means for the human body. For thousands of generations, the people who could tolerate alcohol best, who could metabolize it efficiently, who did not become violently ill after a few drinks, those were the people most likely to stay hydrated, most likely to survive, most likely to pass on their genes. The modern human capacity for alcohol consumption is not a bug. It is a feature. It was selected for. Your liver's remarkable efficiency at processing ethanol is a product of evolution shaped by 10,000 years of human fermentation. But the story has a shadow, because the same chemical that bonded early humans together, that built temples and cities and trade routes, also unraveled individuals. The same brain chemistry that made alcohol a social miracle made it a personal trap for some. The dopamine response, the oxytocin release, the quieting of the prefrontal cortex, for people with certain genetic profiles and certain life histories, those effects became not a way to connect but a way to escape. And escape, once discovered, is very hard to give up. The invention of alcohol was the invention of both community and addiction, delivered in the same vessel, indistinguishable from each other at first sip. Here is what the science now tells us. Alcohol did not derail civilization, it may have launched it. The desire to make more of it drove early humans to cultivate grain. The ritual of sharing it drove early humans to build the first monuments. The social bonding it enabled drove early humans to form the large cooperative groups that became cities, empires, and eventually the world you live in now. Every institution, every culture, every religion, every government that has ever existed grew in a world where humans had already learned to ferment. The next time you sit across from someone you barely know and feel the room relax after the first drink, that is not weakness. That is not indulgence. That is 10,000 years of human social technology doing exactly what it was always meant to do, making a stranger feel like someone you can trust, making a group of individuals feel like a people. It started with rotting fruit and a primate too curious to walk away, and it never really stopped. Guys, if you liked today's video, make sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel for more amazing videos. Thanks for watching.